Hi, my name's Ed, and today I'm going to be talking about the film Whiplash, directed by Damien Chazelle, starring Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. Now, I'm going to start off by saying this is probably one of the hardest reviews I've had to write for this channel. And I'm also going to be a bit unorthodox and say that I recommend this film. And I know generally in movie reviews you save that bit till the end. And it's not necessarily because I'm going to spoil the plot of this film, but I am going to dissect and spoil the message of this film. So, if you have Netflix, it's on there. You can watch it pretty much for free in that case, or you can buy the DVD for relatively cheap. It's worth it. You have my recommendation. So, with that warning out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and start my review. So, in general, my personal favourite types of films are films that bring up some kind of relevant debate or discussion that's kind of applicable to either general human nature or society that we live in today. And in the case of Whiplash, it certainly fulfills the former. It the debate or the central theme of this film is success, and that's something that kind of makes it very timeless. It's a critique of human nature. It's not a social commentary. I mean, of course, it is to a certain extent. It dissects a lot of the pressures put on kids, basically, by universities and professors and general society and how that affects them. But for the most part, it's critiques people and how much they kind of want and how much they're willing to sacrifice for success. And it does this in very clever ways. The first way in which, the most important way in which it does this is it never strays away from this core idea. Every character in there is essential for being in there. They represent different aspects of the debate, and they represent kind of it's almost like a speech. This film, it's like every character, every technique, and every plot point is used as a point for each side of the debate. We see our main character slowly lose every aspect of his life. He loses his love interest. He loses his closeness with his family. He loses his college degree, and even his physical well-being. But most importantly, he loses his compassion. Now, that might seem kind of strange when we're talking about a film about success, and that's really what makes this film stand apart. The central theme is success, but more specifically, it's about the cost of success. A lot of films a lot of films that center around the theme of success kind of do so by putting the character through a somewhat linear journey. So, to think of an example, The King's Speech begins with the character not being able to speak properly. Therefore, he faces a lot of turmoil, but by the end, through a lot of hard work and dedication, he inspirationally manages to be able to deliver a powerful speech signifying his, character arc. And that sounds, obviously that's, a given, basically, for story writing, but Whiplash really turns this on its head. It faces the character with the same kind of turmoil. It, as I said, it takes away his love interest and all of the benefits of his life, yada yada yada. But his character arc is more of a descent than an ascent. In The King's Speech, the main character becomes more confident and he gains more towards the end than he does at the beginning. And that's sort of true for this film. By the end of the film, as I'll talk about later, he's he succeeds, but the cost of that is so high. He, as I said, he sacrifices his compassion that he shows towards the beginning of the film. At the beginning of the film, he's a really likable character, but by the end, we're not so sure as a viewer. He's a very cold, emotionless person. All he seems to care about is success, and that ties in a lot with the amazing performance of J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller. The relationship that they have is so dynamic, you can really believe the natural kind of way in which it develops, and the way in which Andrew's character kind of, as I said, descends into becoming more like his teacher, for better or for worse. So what's great is that it treats the viewer with a lot of respect and intelligence. As I alluded to, it kind of doesn't portray one side of the argument, it portrays both sides. So if you think about films like, for example, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas or 12 Years a Slave, they might think they're not very compatible because, they're a very amplified idea of human suffering, but in a way they do present a debate. But they present an outdated debate, and it's one that's very relevant to that kind of era of time. No one, or at least no one that you should give any credence to, believes that the Holocaust was a good thing. No one believes that slavery was a good thing. There's no real kind of room for discussion there, unlike with Whiplash. So while that has a lot of, somewhat emotional value, Whiplash has a lot of intellectual value, and it really depends on what you prefer most. But as I said, I prefer personally films like Whiplash to present a more intellectual side to them. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm some kind of intellectual superiority, and that you should feel bad for wanting a film with an emotional pull, but I'm saying that you should give a lot of credence to Whiplash, because these type of films take a lot more creative ingenuity. They require a lot of creative vision to exist, and films like 12 Years a Slave, I think, revolve around a very easily marketable, not to undermine their quality, but they are very kind of easily marketable, consumer-friendly products, whereas I think Whiplash is a lot harder to sell to the masses. But anyway, I digress. The highlight of the film for me was the conclusion. It appropriately left the debate open and remained neutral in its argument. So, as I said, by the end of the film, Andrew does succeed. It's somewhat ambiguous, but it seems to heavily imply that he succeeds. He, after being humiliated by his teacher, he comes back on triumphantly, kind of shows him who's boss, and impresses the teacher for the seemingly almost the first time in the whole film. And it seems like that's inherently means that he's succeeded and that he's won. But there's no denying the suffering that he's gone through, and also the suffering that he must still be feeling. He's not suddenly become more compassionate. He still has that lack of humanity to him that he's lost because of his drive for success. He hasn't got back together with his girlfriend either. He also hasn't magically improved his relationship with his dad. He's still lost a lot to gain success. It's not like once he's become better at drumming, all of his problems are magically solved, like they seem to be like a lot of other directors seem to think, and a lot of other people seem to think. And that's what makes this film so prolific, in my opinion. This is a really kind of different way of thinking that I've never really seen before. Not to get too kind of artsy-fartsy, but this is really kind of deep stuff, and it made me think about it and have a lot of discussions for the few days afterwards. I had extended discussions with the people I saw this film with a few days, days afterwards. It's one of those films that really sticks with you for a long time after you've seen it. It's a film that exists outside of the film itself. It's a film that kind of extends itself beyond just you kind of thinking about it while you're watching it. You think about it, it affects how you think about other things. So, hopefully that wasn't an incomprehensible mess. The nature of this film has made it very difficult to put into words how I feel about it, but hopefully I did a decent job. So, yeah. In other words, I wholeheartedly recommend this film, as I said earlier. If you've ever thought about trying to set yourself on some kind of journey to succeed, if you've ever tried to trying to start some kind of project or something that you think might not work out, or you've ever started a project that hasn't worked out, etc., etc. Basically, if you're a human being, you will be able to relate to this film. So, with that in mind, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Movie Night. Thank you very much.